What is going on, YouTube? Andrew Miller from Hook'emHeadlines.com coming back at y'all today with a recruiting update. Wanted to take a look at some of the recruits on commitment watch for Texas. I'm just taking a look at some of the official visitors from last weekend as well as this coming weekend, and where Texas stands with a lot of these guys and what to watch for in the weeks ahead. Just to recap, Texas did land 2 commitments last weekend. They first snagged a pledge from 4-star Scottsdale Desert Mountain cornerback Santana Wilson. Wilson committed to Texas on June 17th. It's the first pure cornerback to recruit, first pure cornerback recruit to commit to Texas's 2024 class. I really like him, but did a separate video on him and the other Texas commit from last weekend if y'all want to get more information from that. I'll link that down in the description below. But the other one was 4-star Spring Branch Smithson Valley wide receiver Freddie DeBose Jr. He committed on June 18th, gave Texas a lot of momentum on the final day of the official visit weekend. Was a nice way to cap last weekend. But yeah, I want to take a look at it. I got around a dozen recruits that Texas has on commitment watch between the official visitors from last weekend and this coming weekend. That's how big some of these official visits will be for the Longhorns. If you follow Texas recruiting closely, I'm sure you'll recognize some of these names, maybe some of these updates you're already familiar with, but I got some of the latest for Texas, and like I said, some of the top recruits in the 2024 class. We will be taking a broader look, I believe Tarek, Shane, and I, either tomorrow or Friday morning at some of the top recruits visiting this coming weekend, taking more of an overarching look, previewing the official visit weekend coming up. But that will be a separate video. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump in. I want to first take a look at some of the recruits on commitment watch from last weekend's official visitors. That, again, consisted of around 21 official visitors, many of which were out-of-state guys, and again, 2 of which Texas already landed commitments from in Wilson and DeBose. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into the first name up on the list, and that is 3-star edge rusher out of Arizona, specifically from Desert Edge High School in Goodyear, Deshawn Warner. Warner, I believe, made his first official visit to campus last weekend, and Texas. I think Texas is not pushing super hard for Warner. I say that meaning that Warner is one of these guys that, depending on what happens with some of Texas's bigger edge recruits in the 2024 class, guys like 5-star Duncanville edge rusher Colin Simmons, 4-star Danny Okoye, even 5-star Jordan Ross. I did a piece on the site earlier this week talking about how Texas actually made a really big impression on Ross, and I think that's someone that Texas could get involved for. I believe Ross included Texas among his top 5 schools when he cut down his list. It was a few weeks ago now. But I think there's some bigger edge rusher priorities on Texas's board. If Texas pushes for Warner, and I believe he's set for an early July decision date, then he is someone that could end up in this class. But, he's a lower 3-star, more of like a high upside guy. I know last weekend he was hosted by Billy Walton. And so overall, I don't know where exactly he ranks in terms of Texas's pecking order for the takes in the 2024 class at the edge position. Still, had a fantastic visit. He's someone with high physical upside. He could be more of a developmental guy. Again, someone that Texas could get in the class that could make an impact maybe 3-4 years down the line, 2 or 3 years after he arrives on campus. Next name up on the list is 3-star Lafayette Christian Academy defensive lineman Melvin Hills. Hills was one of, I think, 3 or 4 out-of-state defensive linemen that visited last weekend. He's kind of a middle-tier 3-star recruit, stands around 6'4", 275 pounds. He's a talented defensive lineman, someone that they would be looking to take, more of like a 3-tech guy. Again, not necessarily a developmental guy. I do think that he's someone that if he can put on, you'd still be looking to put on around 25, 30 pounds in the next year or so before he's ready to compete in the SEC. But a guy that could compete 2 or 3 years down the line for a starting job. I think he's undervalued a little bit. He's got a good frame. He's a good run stopper. Got a pretty good arsenal of pass rush moves as well. Again, someone that is pretty underrated. I think he fits the bill more of a low 4-star, but Texas really knocked it out of the park last weekend. Hills came in, I heard some saying that he was more of an Ole Miss lean. But, if Texas, this is another case where if Texas pushes for a commitment from Hills, I think that this is one that they would get. Now, there's an interesting situation developing here between Hills and some of the other defensive linemen that officially visited last weekend. Mainly Malik Blockton, 3-star out of Alabama. Sounds like Blockton right now is a little bit more of an Auburn lean, but they both have summer decision dates, decision timelines set, and if Blockton ends up committing to Texas first, my understanding is that Hills might not have a spot in this class. Blockton's again another around 6'3", 6'4", 270-pound defensive lineman, and I think that they're, in terms of these 3-tech guys that are going to be maybe 2 or 3 year guys before they're ready to hit the field, that I think there's only going to be room for one. But again, Texas made a good impression with Hills. I think they lead right now. It depends on if they push for him. If they do, I think he'll end up in this class. If not, he'll probably end up at Ole Miss. Next name up on the list is 3-star Langham Creek tight end out of the Houston area, Jordon Washington. Jordon Washington is a take in this class. At this point, he is the top tight end priority on the board for Jeff Banks and the Longhorns in the 2024 class. That is undoubtedly the case after Texas missed on 4-star Laguna Beach tight end Reiner Swanson, who committed to BYU last week. He was their top priority. This is going to be a 2 tight end class for Texas. Washington going to be more of that receiving tight end mold. He's about 6'4", 220 pounds. He's a guy that is going to be versatile as a receiver from the tight end position. You can line him up out wide. He's a good route runner, got good hands. You can line him up in line. Blocking is going to be a little bit more of a work in progress for him. But again, high upside receiving tight end. Texas continues to build this relationship. They are definitely the leaders in this recruitment right now. Texas A&M's in the mix right now, and I think they're going to push for him, but I don't think they're going to be able to chip away at Texas's lead enough to really make a dent. Alabama was rumored to be making a push here for a little bit, but I don't think much has come from that. At the moment, I definitely have Washington on commitment watch. It would really, really shock me if we made it out of the month of July without Washington in this class. Next name up, I've got 4-star or high 3-star, depending on the recruiting service you look at, safety, Joshua Lair. Someone that was a really, really big spring riser. He was a pretty solid spring evaluation from the Longhorn staff, but his recruitment really started to blow up around like February, March. Went from being more of like a low 3-star unranked guy in most of the recruiting services, again, to like a high 3-star, low 4-star. He's around 6'1", 180-pound defensive back out of Fort Bend Marshall High School in Missouri City, Texas. This was, I think, like his 3rd or 4th visit to campus last weekend. I know that 2 of the other schools in the mix here are Baylor and LSU. He had the LSU official visit earlier this month. Washington was the official visit that he had this coming weekend. I don't know if that's going to come to fruition, though. I've heard that might end up not happening. Baylor was 2 weekends ago. But this is a guy that, coming into the official visit, I figured Texas was going to push for, but I didn't know how much compared to LSU or Baylor. LSU, I do think they have some other defensive backs higher on their priority board than Lair, but I know Baylor's really pushing for him. But again, Blake Gideon really made an impact on this visit. I believe he's taking the lead here because I know Texas likes Lair as more of a boundary safety type. Maybe someone that can fill more of that Anthony Cook type role, be a solid run stopper, really be able to, lay the wood on opposing ball carriers, and overall just be a physical force in the defensive backfield. Again, Lair's a heavy hitter. He's someone that's still got some work to do in terms of his range as a coverage safety, but again, I think that's why Texas is looking at him more as a boundary safety. But yeah, I think there's another safety name that I'm going to mention on this list that visited Texas officially last weekend. I think that only one of him and Lair is going to be a take in this class. It would be a surprise to me if both of these guys don't end up at Texas, though. I think this is going to be a really deep secondary class for Texas again in 2020. Next up is, I mentioned that there's another safety I think could end up in this class instead of Lair, kind of one or the other. It's 4-star safety Myles Davis, out of Judson High School. Davis came into last weekend's official visit. I think Texas was kind of in second or third place in this recruitment. USC and Texas A&M were setting the pace here for a little while. I think Texas A&M was looked at as the favorite by a lot of people around the college football recruiting landscape, or a lot of people closer to the recruitment at least. Davis was one of the most successful official visits last weekend. Texas made an enormous move. There were a lot of reports saying that Texas was the favorite for Davis coming out of the official visit. I still think that's the case, that Texas holds the lead. But, Davis is another guy that's looking at a summer decision timeline, and the last major official visit that he's currently got scheduled is to see Texas A&M this coming weekend. Texas A&M is very much still in this. If they also have a successful official visit, it wouldn't surprise me if he kind of gets lost in the momentum and, the energy of all these official visits, and Texas A&M could grab the lead back from the Longhorns. This is going to be one that I'm watching with a keen eye in the next couple of weeks. Again, I think Davis is going to end up committing somewhere by the end of July, and it'll be telling where you see Texas prioritizing Davis and Lair here in the next couple of weeks, because I think that'll tell you who the take is in this class more than likely. Next up, I've got one of the biggest official visitors from out of state last weekend, and that is 4-star running back out of Phoenix Mountain Point High School, Christian Clark. Someone that, again, if you follow Texas recruiting closely, this is a name you're probably familiar with. He's been one of the top 2 running back priorities for Tashard Choice in the Longhorns in the 2024 class for quite a few months now. He's someone that has enjoyed every single visit he's been on in Austin. Him and his family had a really good experience. Tashard Choice probably has the best relationship of any coach that's, recruiting Clark right now. That's not a surprise. Tashard Choice has proven to be a real ace recruiter these last few cycles. And, I don't see many other schools really pushing that hard and chipping away at Texas's lead in this recruitment right now. There are some other big schools involved here. Oregon, Georgia were both big players here. Florida State was kind of involved, but Georgia flipped their top running back priority from Florida. I mentioned that in one of the last videos I did for Recruiting Update. They flipped Chauncey Bowens, a 4-star from Florida, so they got their guy now. Oregon has started to push for a West Coast running back, Nathaniel Frazier, another 4-star guy. That just kind of leaves Texas in this recruitment. Clark does still have an official this weekend to Georgia. Again, this is another one that I think could be canceled if it hasn't been already here earlier this week. I highly doubt that Clark is going to go too long before jumping in this Texas class. Texas has another guy that I'll get to later in this video, Jerrick Gibson, visiting this weekend officially. It wouldn't surprise me if Texas finishes off this running back class, before the end of the month of July, because Tashard Choice got his 2 guys. Texas is in the lead for both. Christian Clark is a big part of that. The next name up on the list, and for the most part rounds out the official visitors from last weekend that I wanted to talk about in this video. That's 4-star athlete Aeryn Hampton. This is a guy that Texas has been involved with for a while. There was a point in time when Aeryn Hampton was committed to Texas. He was one of the first commits in the 2024 class. Last year he reopened his recruitment, but Texas has stayed involved here pretty much every step of the way. Hampton's a really talented athlete. Originally looked at as more of a wide receiver type, but there's been some chatter recently that Texas is recruiting him more as a true athlete now. And given that Texas has already taken Dubose in this class and that there are likely more wide receiver commits on the way, it would not surprise me if Hampton is just recruited as a true athlete and they just kind of figure out his positioning later. Ultra gifted athlete, someone that I think could be a really good wide receiver or defensive back. Those are probably his 2 natural positions, depending on what side of the ball he plays. But he had a really good official visit. I think Texas will win this recruitment. He's got, I think it's a July 7th official visit date, decision date set. It's going to be Texas or Alabama. Both schools really like him. I think it's just whatever school pushes harder for him in the next few weeks. And then there is one extra name I wanted to mention, just because I do think there is still a chance that he ends up in this class. I just don't know how likely Texas is to push for him at this point. It's a 3-star interior offensive lineman out of Chatsworth, California, Sierra Canyon High School, Eugene Brooks. The big offensive lineman, big guy that probably needs a little bit more development along the interior, or to play along the interior offensive line. Texas really knocked it out of the park last weekend. Again, Kyle Flood made a big impression with him. I just don't know how much Texas is going to push here. There's some other big schools still involved in this recruitment. So, Texas had the official visit last weekend. OU was the one before, but I do believe that he's still got a Georgia visit lined up for the summer. The fact of the matter with Texas and interior offensive linemen right now is that I don't know how many takes they have in this class beyond the guys. There's, some big names on the board. Daniel Cruz being the first. Makai Sina, guy that's visiting Texas officially this weekend. Even Nair Daniels, who I think is kind of leaning away from Texas right now. But Daniels' recruitment could actually tell a lot about what happens with Brooks. I think he's kind of viewed as a maybe in terms of whether he's a take in this class or not. But again, Brooks still got that, he's still big frame, long arms. Long term could be a high upside guy along the interior offensive line, maybe a starter 3 or 4 years down the line. Still wanted to mention him though, because again, he was an official visitor last week, and there is still a chance he ends up in this class, just like a multitude of other guys I've mentioned here. Depends on how much Texas pushes for him. Okay, so I wanted to let's go ahead and get into some of the official visitors for this coming weekend that Texas has on commitment watch. I got 6 names that I wanted to mention, and there could be more. Texas has, I think after some of the reschedules and cancellations, like 19 or 20 guys officially visiting this weekend. But yeah, let's go and get into it. First name up, I mentioned him a moment ago when talking about Eugene Brooks. It's 4-star interior offensive lineman out of Richland High School in North Richland Hills in the DFW Metroplex. Daniel Cruz. Cruz is a really impressive interior offensive lineman. I believe Texas is looking at him to play center. In terms of center prospects in this class, it doesn't get much better than him. He might not be the most physically imposing when you look at him just in terms of his measurement or measurables. It's about 6'3", 6'4". But if you watch his film, man, he's just really, really impressive. Good body mover at the line of scrimmage and run blocking. Really holds his own as a pass blocker up the middle. All around solid. If Texas can seal the deal with him this weekend, he'll be a solid get. OU is making a push here. There was Ohio State involved for a little bit. Both had official visits with them, but Texas is the school to beat. And I think there's a good chance that Kyle Flood could seal the deal this weekend with Daniel Cruz. Next name up on the list, and one of the biggest official visitors this weekend, is 4-star Lancaster defensive back Corian Gipson, a high 4-star kid. For a while during the spring and early in the summer, it seemed like Clemson was the team to beat in this recruitment. I don't know if that's the case any longer. I covered it at the site a couple weeks ago that Gibson was starting to trend to Texas. There were some crystal balls, and I think it went on 3RPM put in predicting his commitment to Texas. But I know a lot of the chatter was that Clemson really took their swing and tried to shut down this recruitment, get a commitment from Gibson when he was officially visiting them in South Carolina a few weeks ago. But he's still uncommitted, and I believe this is his birthday weekend coming up, and I think there's a good to fair chance that Texas could make a move to shut down this recruitment now. Just get that really, really big swing of momentum. I think this recruitment will be wrapping up shortly, though, and Texas is in a good spot. Getting the final in-person official visit for the summer round of official visits is absolutely huge for a kid like Gibson. So I think that'll be a factor to watch with Texas this weekend. Another defensive back that I wanted to mention is 4-star Jordon Johnson-Rubell, one of the multiple guys that are coming in for official visits this weekend from IMG Academy. I think Texas has, 3 or 4 coming in. It's like TJ Lindsey, I think it was Jane Jackson, Jordon Johnson-Rubell, and Jerrick Gibson, so 4. Johnson-Rubell is a guy that's been on Texas's radar for a long time now. He's from Fort Worth originally, so he's got close ties with some of the other guys around the DFW Metroplex in this class. But Texas is also recruiting the state of Florida hard. A lot of his teammates, TJ Lindsey's, there's been started to be some smoke there between him and Texas, even though he was figured to be an A&M lean. Johnson-Rubell is a guy that Texas's staff has had a great relationship for a while. And, this defensive backfield starting to get crowded in the 2024 class, but I've never seen or heard anything that would contrast Johnson-Rubell being a take. So, he's just really, really versatile. He's a really, really solid defensive back. He plays safety at IMG, but he can play at star. He can play safety. There's a world where he can play corner, but I think nickel or safety will probably be the best spot for him. Yeah, I think Texas is in a great spot to land him. I would expect a summer decision from him before his senior season at least. Next up is, and want to go ahead and clear the defensive backs. This is the biggest name I think I have on this list as well. That's 5-star Waco Connolly cornerback Kobe Black. I want to kind of wrap up talking about the defensive backs that are officially visiting this weekend. And again, none bigger than Kobe Black. I think there's two worlds that exist for Kobe Black if he is going to commit to Texas. And I think the more comfortable one for Texas fans is the world where he commits to Texas this weekend, where Terry Joseph and the Longhorns find a way to get this done in the next week or so. Texas is the favorite in this recruitment right now. I don't think it's by a huge margin, just because there are so many big schools that are still involved here. I've heard for a while that Kobe Black is on a more of a December decision timeline trajectory. I don't know if he's completely firm on that, if Texas really makes a big impression. If Texas extends its lead, if they really, really knock this one out of the park, I think that there's a chance that Kobe Black could end up in this class by let's say mid-July. So, that would be one of the biggest successes of this cycle if Texas could pull that off. But I think it's realistic. Next name up on the list, 4-star wide receiver out of Lucas Lovejoy, Parker Livingstone. Livingstone publicly set a commitment date, I think it was a few weeks ago, for July 1st. And he's been a Texas lean pretty much the entire way. There's been some other schools that have tried to chip away at Texas's lead. South Carolina was making a push there for a little bit, but I don't think really anyone has successfully chipped into Texas's lead. And now knowing that Micah Hudson is very if by the time I get this posted, he's not already committed to Texas Tech, knowing that, he's off the board for the moment for Texas, Livingstone is definitely a take in this class. He's, again, officially visiting this weekend. Every visit he's had to Texas this year has gone really, really well. And I think that will continue to be the case. It would not surprise me if in the next 2 weeks, again, knowing that he has a July 1st commitment date, that he becomes the second true wide receiver committed in the 2024 class. Next name up on the list is 4-star Duncanville defensive lineman Alex January. One of my favorite defensive lineman recruits in this class. I think my two favorite that Texas is going after, just outside of maybe Dominic McKinley. He's 5-star. He's number 1 rated defensive lineman recruit or defensive line recruit, I believe, in the nation by at least one of the major recruiting services. But he's also in an unofficial visit this weekend. But outside of him, January and 4-star, 3 or 4-star again, depending on who you look at. DeAndre Robinson are my two favorite. January, he's a name that's been on the Longhorns board for a while, and I think a lot of people might have forgotten about him a little bit, but about a 6'4", 325-pound guy, again, big human. Bo Davis loves this guy. Texas had a good relationship here for a while. I think if he's ready to commit, that Texas obviously would love to have him in this class. He's a guy that I think could fill more of that nose sort of role, or you could move him out to maybe play more of a T'Vondre Sweat type role. But, again, really, really solid early evaluation by Texas, and, it's a guy that's definitely deserving of that 4-star status by at least a couple of the major recruiting services. Again, it just depends on what decision timeline he's on. I've understood that it could be decision that comes this summer, but he's been pretty patient in the recruiting process so far, so that'll be something that I'll keep an eye on, and that we will be updating you all for coming out of the official visit weekend, Sunday or Monday. Last name on this list, and the biggest offensive recruit that I wanted to get to, is 5-star IMG Academy running back and number 1 running back recruit in the nation in the 2024 class, I believe from 2 of the major recruiting services, Jerrick Gibson, another one of the IMG Academy guys that's going to be on campus this weekend. Texas has been the school that has been favored in this recruitment for a while now. Again, Shard Choice has good relationships here. Texas has been setting the pace. Miami's tried to chip away here and there. I know that Florida State have tried to make pushes here as well. Not to much avail. I think Miami just landed a 4-star running back this week, and so that's not going to help their case very much in this recruitment. I've heard things that Jerrick Gibson might still be waiting a couple of months to shut down his recruitment, but I mentioned earlier in the video, I think there's a chance that both Clark and Gibson could be in this class by the end of July. I'm still going to hold to that. Every single visit that Texas has hosted Gibson on since really like the spring or even the first junior day of the offseason have gone really, really well. Each kind of seems to go better than the last. I wouldn't be surprised if, Texas just is ready to try and shut this down once and for all. I don't know if a commitment could come this weekend, but if it did, that would be great. But I would expect one again by around the end of July, if not before his senior season. Anyway, running up about 25, 26 minutes here. So, that's all I wanted to mention. Like I said, we're going to have more of a holistic official visit weekend preview coming in the next day or so with Shane, Tark, and myself to look forward to this coming weekend. But there were still some updates I wanted to put out for last weekend's official visitors since just so much happened. Texas has a lot of momentum going on the recruiting trail right now in the 2024 class. But anyway, for Andrew Miller, Hook'emHeadlines.com, that's pretty much it. Hook 'em.